What's up, you guys? Your boy B Mahari here, represent Mahari Nation Sports Podcast. Much love to everybody and all my subscribers out there, man. Thanks for holding it down for me. I really appreciate that. Tonight, there's no basketball because the Suns have already wrapped up the Western Conference Final, and Game 6 of the East Final doesn't start till tomorrow. So I pretty much am going to decide I'm going to do the episode of Basketball Conversations tonight for y'all, and we're going to go in on a lot of different subjects I got in mind. So stay tuned for that at 9 p.m. Central Time. Okay, so I wanted to particularly talk about this big shocking story that happened on Wednesday. The NCAA finally finally decided to end the bogus terminology of amateurism, decided to end the old guard and allow these athletes to use their likeness to pretty much allow them to make money off of themselves. And finally, it has happened, and it took effect yesterday. And I'm very, very happy about that because it was a long time coming. Listen, I loved my college basketball video games back in the day when I had my PlayStation 2. It was fun, it was entertaining, and they were fun, entertaining games to play with. But not understanding the fact that a lot of these guys that were in the video games were not confiscated for their likeness, and you start to really think about the fact that damn, these colleges have been very much using a lot of their sponsorships. They've been getting a lot of TV deals, all that other good stuff. And what do the athletes get? Absolutely nothing. Zip, zilt, nada. And so for almost like a decade and a half, what I mean, not just in a decade. Now you can go back all the way back towards the 70s. Okay, this issue of the term of amateurism really has been a faulty type of system which the NCAA has been able to allow themselves to make money off of these athletes while the athletes gets absolutely nothing. It was completely ridiculous. And any athlete that pretty much was given money from an agent, from a sponsorship, or anything like that, pretty much ended their eligibility as an NCAA athlete and was considered a paid athlete. This is one of the reasons why in college basketball you see a lot of one and dones or a lot of the high school prospects pretty much going to the D League or going overseas, to make some quick money while basically waiting for themselves to be eligible for the NBA draft. And I think that this new rule that's taking effect now is really going to help college basketball. But before I get into that, I want to read to you guys the rules that the NCAA instated, you know, on their website yesterday. You can find it on the NCAA.com just using the Google term likeness. So here is what the NCAA had to say about it, calling it the NIL. All right, they're basically what it's called, the National. Oh, I forgot what his name was. I'll just get any NIL, whatever. So here's the rules about this. Individuals can engage in NIL activities that are consistent with the laws of the state where the school is located. College and universities may be a resource for state law questions. College athletes who attend a school in a state without an NIL school law and can engage in this type of activity without violating NCAA rules relating to name, image, and likeness. Individuals can use a professional services provider for NIL activities, which in terms which in turns means they could basically hire an agent, hire a lawyer, a representative, accountant, anybody. And the NIL little acronym is basically name, image, likeness. And also, lastly, student athletes should report to NIL activities consistent with the state law or local or school or conference requirements to their school. So, pretty much as simple as this. The NCAA knew that the heat was on. They knew that the holding on to the idea of amateurism and not letting athletes getting money off these sponsors while making millions off of their schools was just becoming much more ridiculous each passing day. Now, if you've been a long time subscriber of me, I did a historical perspective video about Walter Byers, who was one of the main presidents of the NCAA. He was the first executive director of the NCAA from 1951 through 1988, and basically was the guy that helped create the term student athlete. All right. But what he did was that he went on to negotiate lucrative TV contracts that preempt the individual colleges' rights on the way to building $1 billion business, which led into the 1984 Supreme Court ruling that free colleges to negotiate their own television deals. But in his book called Unsportsmanlike Conduct Exploiting College Athletes, Walter Byers, after retirement, turned against the NCAA in its current form, saying that a nationwide, saying that the fact that the whole old standard of the NCAA was basically a nationwide money laundering scheme, and also revealed to the fact that the NCAA developed the term student athlete in order to insinuate the colleges from having to provide long term disability payments to players injured while playing in their sport and making money for the university and the NCAA. And the book also includes the fact that Byers also said to Congress, free the athletes, and enact a comprehensive college athlete bill of rights in page 374 of this book. But he also said to the fact that this is not a suggestion for new government controls. On the contrary, it's an argument that the federal government should require deregulation of monopoly business operated by nonprofit institutions contradicting together to achieve maximum financial returns. In doing in doing so, would treat the twin curses of exploitation and hypocrisy that has been deviled college athletics in its direct position to the intensified commercialization, and would prevent college colleges from denying players the freedoms and available to other students. And he also finally concluded, he said, collegiate amateurism is not a moral issue. It's an economic camouflage for monopoly practice, for one which operates an airtight racket of supply cheap athletic labor. So yeah, pretty much to the fact that these guys, these MFers, pretty much has been exploiting these athletes for decades. You go back towards the UNLV stuff with Jerry Tarkanian. You go back to the Michigan stuff in the 90s involving those athletes, including Chris Webber. All right, the USC football scandal, and I'm gonna get into the Reggie Bush thing in a minute. But all these scandals that are involving money, involving paying an agent and all that other stuff. I mean, it was becoming much more ridiculous to the fact that college basketball was being used as a business, not as amateurism, and pretty much to the fact the NCAA exploits these athletes, make money off of them, and they get zero money out of this. I remember in the Fab Five documentary where the fact that Jalen Rose talked about that when they recognized that a lot that their school was basically using their likeness and pretty much their imaging to make money and they weren't getting the cent, they started to protest. And one of the things they protested with by doing was just wearing the simple, navy blue, Michigan shirt to pretty much signify to the point while they were protesting to the fact in a silent protest that they should be confiscated for their talents. And I agree with that 100% entirely. I mean, you think about this for a moment. I make at least 16.75 an hour in my previous job. All right. Right now, I have at least maybe $12,000 saved. That's a lot of money. Okay. But if you think about the fact, with this new rule intact, this will allow any athlete from any level, I don't care if it's volleyball, swimming, college football, college basketball, any sport, even track and field. If any sponsor wants to make wants to make money off of any individual athlete, now they're able to do that without risking their fear of losing their eligibility. And it's finally happening, and I'm happy to see that. But the one thing that I will say that will help college basketball in terms of this is going to help promote, this will help promote to college athletes to make their money off of themselves. But for the high school athletes that are coming in to college, this is going to encourage them to pretty much give the NCAA sports a chance, because now with the new rules intact, this will allow athletes that are already making money off of themselves to begin with the opportunity to make even more money. And even if they don't play in the professional level, this will allow them to use pretty much their imaging. They're pretty much using their advertisers and their sponsorship to create more money and create much more long term wealth for themselves. But also, it will help the professional scouting in this aspect, not just for pro sports, but also for the scouts in college level, because they always wanted to see who can handle themselves outside of their sport, but also who can handle financial situation in terms of money. This will help wide down the gap in terms of that, and then you're going to see a lot more athletes, much more responsible athletes, learning how to manage their money, learn how to talk to the media, learning how to accept the most appropriate sponsorships that was going to help their branding. So that's really a huge thing. And more importantly for me as a basketball fan, this to me is a welcoming sight, because now this is going to start narrowing the gap of the one and done type of players, guys that are looking to just play college basketball for at least 1 year and then leave to the NBA. This is going to help narrow down the gap, because it's going to pretty much encourage guys to stay in school while still making a good earning for themselves. All right, so I'm very happy that this is happening. Now, in terms of college football, I could picture this being the same way but bigger, considering the fact that you have pretty much dominant conferences in the West and some in the South that that basically have laws that allow them to pretty much use their likeness and all that. This is going to pretty much encourage them even further to make more money off of themselves. And even if they don't make it to the NFL, the money that they'll be able to save up in terms of their sponsorships will allow them to create more money for themselves. And more importantly, I would love for a lot of these colleges to pretty much create a likeness class or maybe a commercializing class for these athletes to pretty much teach them how to manage their finances, but also how to look for the best sponsorship available to them that's basically going to help establish themselves in the best way possible. So it's very a welcoming sight to see. Now I know there's going to be a lot of people that's going to say, well, I wish the old things could go back to the old way and all that. Let me tell you something, okay? The old way was basically institutional slavery at its finest. Okay, it was institutional slavery. I can remember a story where when I was in the University of Minnesota, okay, I was talking to Nate Mason, who was the former point guard of the Golden Gophers, and we had a brief conversation. And I looked at him like, man, you should be getting paid for the amount of things you do. You got to wake up early. You got to do your training. You get to class and you get to practice. I mean, like, you're not getting a cent out of this. And he's like, I know. So they knew. A lot of these athletes, they knew what was up, but at the time, they were powerless to do anything about it. Because if they got caught by anybody in the NCAA, they would either deemed ineligible and not being able to play, or they'll be forced into the intimidation and pretty much surrender all their financial, gifts and all that stuff. Now, look, I'm going to get into the Reggie Bush thing, okay? Reggie Bush won the 2005 Heisman Trophy award and was stripped a bit because he accepted money from an agent during that whole USC, football scandal or whatever. The bottom line is this: it was a dumb decision to begin with, and it was a scandal that just should never happen in the first place. Because listen, a lot of these colleges were pretty much doing the exact same thing, except they were just good enough not to get caught by it. So honestly, man, the NCAA needs to do themselves a favor. Reinstate those records and give the man back his entire college career and let the Heisman Trophy Fund give him back his actual trophy because they had no business having that trophy stripped in the first place. Also, for me personally, for Chris Webber, who's about to enter into the Basketball Hall of Fame, give him back his entire college career. Give him back all those records, all those wins, everything in the book. Give it all back. Like he said on Twitter, you still have the kid that basically packaged all of their 1992 and 1993 Final Four banners downstairs in Chrysler Arena. Give it all back because the bottom line is that whole scandal of the Michigan thing should have never happened in the first place. It was out of just random coincidence. And more importantly, a lot of these colleges were pretty much doing the same thing, accepting money from boosters. I mean, come on. It was ridiculous then. It sounds ridiculous now. And it's about time the NCAA got called out on their stuff. And they were actually called out on Congress a few years back, where one of the Congress members was tired of hearing the NCAA pretty much talking about the whole amateurism BS. And pretty much this Congresswoman said, "You're the freaking CEO," to Mark Aaron, who was the CEO of the NCAA, and she pretty much walked out. And then years later, California started passing legislation allowing these college athletes to use their likeness to make money off of themselves, and the NCAA tried to threaten them. But what was they going to do? Are they going to force the college, the California colleges not to play in their bowl games? I mean, come on, man. It was pretty much ridiculous. But I'm glad that this has finally come to an end. Now it's pretty much going to open the door for these college video games to return, especially when EA wanted to pay, likeness to these athletes, but they weren't able to do it originally. And also, salute to Ed O'Bannon, man. Salute to Ed O'Bannon because he was one of the first athletes that pretty much challenged the NCAA on this whole likeness issue. And also that quarterback from Arizona State, I forgot his name, but he also was one of the very few that pretty much challenged him on the whole likeness issue when he pretty much saw himself in the video game, but wasn't getting a cent out of it. So yeah, these things was the inevitable, and these guys who fought the issue to the team, risk, their future, career opportunities involving, college sports. But the bottom line is they were fighting an issue that was way much bigger than just video games. They were fighting an issue that was going to affect college sports in the long run. And now this is pretty much going to give the NCAA an opportunity to pretty much redeem themselves from all the egregious, scandals, the egregious decisions, everything that they've done egregiously against these athletes in terms of stripping them of their livelihoods and all that. This is going to pretty much vacate all that stuff once and for all. And it's about time they did that. So I don't want to hear any more, just talk about, oh, they need to stop letting these athletes, make money off of themselves. Because guess what? It's fair game. A lot of these colleges, a lot of these top colleges were pretty much doing it behind the scenes even before the NCAA instituted the likeness rule. So guess what? They're still going to do it. They were doing it then, and they're still going to do it even now. Now it's pretty much fair game for any college around the country to get the best athletes available and allow them to use their likeness to pretty much promote their schools and promote themselves. And it's about time we start celebrating that. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What do you think about the whole likeness thing, and how is it going to affect college sports for the next 10 to 20 years? But let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I'll see you later on tonight for basketball conversation. And with that, I'm out. Peace.